Hello, everybody. This is Christina Fasonic coming live to you from Wheeling, West Virginia, like we do twice a week, or at least I do. And my partner in crime here is Damian Dressick. Hello, Damian.
Hey, Christina. How are you tonight?
Well, I'm okay. How are you?
I'm outstanding. I'm very excited about tonight's reading.
Yeah, I know. I am. I don't know this next writer, and I read her bio, and I was really excited about it. So, you want to tell everybody who she is and what she does?
I'd be very happy to. So tonight we've got a special treat for you. We have Lori Jakiela. She is the author of the memoir, Belief is Its Own Kind of Truth, Maybe. From Atticus Books. It won the 2016 Saroyan Prize for International Literature from a little old place called Stanford University. It was a finalist for the Council of Literary Magazines and Small Press's Firecracker Award. She's also the author of the essay collection Portrait of the Artist as a Bingo Worker from Bottom Dog Press, so we're pressmates. And she's written two memoirs. Miss New York Has Everything, which is a wonderful memoir. I've had a chance to have Lori read or a chunk of that in a reading series. So that was really great to see. And The Bridge to Take When Things Get Serious. She's also the author of the poetry collection Spot the Terrorist and several limited edition poetry chapbooks. Her work has been published in the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Chicago Tribune, the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, Rumpus, and Brevity. She lives in Pittsburgh with her husband, Dave Newman, the writer, and their children, and she directs the undergraduate writing program at the University of Pittsburgh at Greensburg. She's a professor of English and creative writing there and is the co-director of the Chautauqua Institution Summer Writers Festival. And I'm deeply envious of this last thing. She is the winner. She's the winner of Pittsburgh's first and only literary death match. So let's bring Lori out here. Can we do that?
See, that's the thing that made me really want to meet her when you told me that. Hi, Lori.
Hi, Christina. Hi, Damian. It's good to see you both.
Hey there.
Thanks for the death match. You got to be real tough, because look, I'm tough. Anyway,
I lost. They said the other writers had better socks.
Really?
Yes. This was in Denver at AWP. Socks came down.
Up your sock game, Damian.
I do. I keep getting these emails from Stocky Socks, so I'm gonna get on that.
Yeah, this whole sock monkey. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, we are going to turn it over to you, and we're looking forward to your reading tonight.
Okay, thank you both so much, and thanks everybody for being here.
Great. We'll talk to you in a few minutes.
Okay. Bye-bye. So, hi, everybody. I'm going to read one poem and then a little bit from my next book. The poem is actually something I had written for the late, great Chuck Kinder, who those of you who are from Appalachia, like me, might have heard of Chuck Kinder. He is the author of many books, and he also coined the phrase, the Paris of Appalachia, when he referred to Pittsburgh. And this is for Chuck. To Chuck Kinder, who taught me kindness. The first poem I ever published was about rotting tomatoes and death. There were birds too, of course. There are always birds, and withered hands and eyes that close and sink like the sun and break like a sad egg over the horizon. In short, the poem was terrible. But I was 25 and I thought it was magnificent. And the editors at a magazine called Poem, all caps, in Huntsville, Alabama, were kind or desperate enough to take it. It's something I try to remember. How many people have been kind to me in this life for no reason, and how much I need to pay that kindness back, even though most of the time I lean toward the mean and petty angels of my nature. What I'm saying is, Chuck Kinder, thank you for not mocking me. When I showed up on your doorstep with a bottle of cheap champagne and a fake, possibly roadkill-based leather jacket I bought in an expo mart after hawking my wedding ring because I was sure at 25 I no longer wanted to be married and I would instead live out my life as a famous writer now that Poem magazine had published Tomato Harvest. When I told Jeff Oakes, he said, "Poetry magazine, that's unbelievable." And I said, "No, Poem magazine." And Jeff said, "Never heard of it." When I told Ed Ochester, he said, "Poetry magazine, holy shit, that's big time." And I said, "No, Poem magazine." And he said, "Never heard of it." And I said, "It's a magazine out of Huntsville, Alabama." And he said, "I've been to Alabama. They got a statue of Vulcan there." Vulcan, that god of fire, the pillar of Rome. My father worked the mills in Pittsburgh. My father worked in fire. One time when I was 17, he forgot his lunch and I took it to him. When I showed up with his bologna sandwich and a mottled banana and a love note from my mother, he rolled what looked like a garage door open, and I peered inside, and all I saw were flames. My father was a machinist. He would not say he was a child of Vulcan. I was my father's daughter, a 25-year-old woman from Trafford, Pennsylvania, studying poetry. Jesus Christ. Still, my father said, "Good for you, sweetheart." My father said, "Are you eating okay?" My father said, "Are you happy or what?" My father had wanted to be a singer, so maybe he understood something about the pool of art, the beautiful hopelessness of that. And he sometimes paid my rent and my bar bills and gave me the privilege of believing I was doing something useful, moving words around a page. It took years for me to call myself a writer. It still feels ridiculous to say it, but you, Chuck, you old con man, bank robber, and self-proclaimed pussy hound, believed in me, or at least you let me believe you did, which was kindness enough. You, the great and magnificent writer I was too terrified to take a class with, opened your door to me and said, "Poem magazine, that's fabulous." And you invited me in. Where I sat on a stool another student of yours had painted, on the seat was a nest full of eggs, like whoever sat on it was hatching something wonderful. Dear Chuck. So I'm just going to read just a few bits, one bit from my next book. It's called Say You Want to Live and Be Beautiful. It's a memoir. It's somewhat about cancer, somewhat not. I was diagnosed with cancer this past year, right before COVID hit. So I've been in my house for about a year now. Not really, but almost. So this is from the first chapter of that book. Say You Want to Live and Be Beautiful. Chapter 1, Diagnosis. When the oncology nurse calls, I'm eating a Pick 2 at the Panera in Westmoreland Mall. I've laid off red meat, and when my husband hands me a vape pen filled with weed, I pull up one hand like a traffic cop. It wards off Alzheimer's, he says. Too late, I say. Who are you again? I squint like memory and sight are connected, which of course they are. I've cut back on coffee and given up Red Bull as some odd penance. Red Bull gives people strokes, I say to my husband, who I call Newman, who everyone calls Newman except for his parents, who sometimes call him David or Dave, when I see him chugging a large cranberry Red Bull. Fake news, he says, and goes on chugging. I remember a time before energy drinks, I say, and my daughter Phelan, who's 15, says, "You were born in the 1900s, which sounds wrong, too old, then not. We used to do this thing called sleep, I say, and Phelan says, "Whatever, boomer," and giggles. Gen X, I say, been seen The Breakfast Club, and Phelan says, "Was that something you did after school way back then?" My daughter was born in 2014. She knows Winona Ryder from the series Stranger Things. She thinks Johnny Depp's wino tattoo is because he has a drinking problem, which page 6 says he does, who knows, not judging. Stranger Things is set in the 1980s. The kids in the show ride bikes with banana seats and handlebar tassels, just like the bikes I knew growing up. This makes me feel younger, immortal maybe. Did you eat eggs and talk about current events? Phelan wants to know about The Breakfast Club. Did you love toast? I remember a time when breakfast attention was a serious thing. I remember a time before schools were on the news, before shelter in place was a thing, before automatic weapons and metal detectors, before English teachers turned in students who wrote essays about madness, before anyone worried about active shooters or anything other than mean girls and bullies, and what was in the meat the cafeteria passed off as hamburger, and where would sit the bus. But I don't say that. Do you really want to bring a child into this world? People ask back in the 1900s. They ask this even more often now. What is wrong with people who ask that? Hope is the thing with feathers that sings the tune without the words and never stops at all. That's Emily Dickinson. She never had children, so what? And so, my children are my hope. I want them eternal. I want them to never stop at all. Whatever, Zoomer, I say to my daughter, and kiss her twice on her lovely head. Today, I have made healthy choices, a Greek salad, a roll without butter, chicken soup, and I'm feeling pretty good. My current cancer scare has me focused on life changes. I clock my steps with an app that looks like a heart about to explode. I've cut back on drive-through burgers and returned to vegetables. I'm too busy to cook said vegetables, so sometimes I eat them raw, which I think is extra healthy. When I'm feeling sad, I eat the vegetables straight from the bag without washing them first and think I deserve the pesticides. My seatmate on a flight recently, a tiny blonde named Tabby who swore by raw foods and had a glow usually only found in religious fanatics and morning talk show hosts, said raw foods helped her drop 90 pounds and gave her the sex drive of a teenage boy. I'm 45 and I can go for days, Tabby said. Tabby double karate chopped her pussy for emphasis. She did this thing with her arms that demanded pom-poms, arms up, arms down, a V, an upside down V, again, again. I've seen professional wrestlers do this move. When male professional wrestlers do this move, it's called delete, suck it. When male professional wrestlers do this move, entire stadiums stand up and chop along. Delete, suck it, delete. On our flight from JFK to Pittsburgh, the seatbelt sign was off, so Tabby stood up, jutted her hips, and chopped again. Then she did a sexy jiggle in the aisle. My brain inserted pom-poms and tassels where pom-poms and tassels should be. Tabby probably perfected her jiggle in Zumba. Tabby probably launched her jiggle as a cheerleader back in the 1900s, back when I was a flight attendant, back when I flew with a friend who was a Dallas Cowboys cheerleader, and I flew with a friend who was a Rockette, and another who was a Hooters girl. My Hooters friend made the Hooters calendar before she was hired by our airline, Miss February, I think. Hooters made all their waitresses wear support hose and water bras called Miracles. How 1900s, so pre-me too, Phelan would say and roll her eyes. When I started flying, the airlines had just been forced to give up weight requirements. Supervisors could no longer snap our underwear during uniform checks to make sure we were wearing what the handbook called support garments. In 2018, Tabby's butt, a miracle byproduct of the 1900s, looked timeless, girdleless, spanksless, 2 maracas and bedazzled jeans. Tabby's boobs were zesty shaker eggs that did not slosh. I think Tabby's boobs have always been zesty, but here, well into the 2000s, they had aged like giant jumping beans and seemed persistent. They looked healthy, eternal, immortal. Imagine. We live until we die, am I right? Tabby said, and jiggled more. Sometimes wrestlers with the WWE mix it up and the crowd goes wild. Suck it, delete, suck it. Thank you.
Oh, wow.
Well, we are definitely going wild here at WCONA Live, reading some Northern Appalachia. Thank you for that.
That was incredible. Really.
Thank you guys so much.
I love the tone of both of those pieces, and I thought I really enjoyed the first one because I just finally, over the past 4 or 5 years, started tapping into sort of my dad's work as working in the mill, and when I would visit him, and that same feeling of just this furnace, and but the second one was just hilarious and also bittersweet and zesty.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Where did your dad work, Christina?
He worked at a place just below Wheeling, West Virginia, where I live, called Triangle PWC. and they made piping and wiring. And he was he's still alive, but at the time he was a member of the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. So when I would go in there, there would be vats of acid and fire and who knows what, and loud, so loud.
Yeah, so loud
that you couldn't hear yourself. And he cannot hear now. Like when I go to his house, I tell people I can watch his big screen TV from his driveway because the volume of his TV is so loud because of his hearing. But all of it from working at the mill.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It was not safe to say the least.
Different ways.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Damien, for bringing her on and bringing her to our show. It's great.
Well, thanks, Lori, for coming and reading for us. We're really just outstanding work. You write the way I don't know. It's I'm always terrified to read your books because I feel like you know me better. You know me the way I would know myself if I were more perceptive.
Oh. That's so sweet. Thank you. That's so nice. Thank you so much.
Have a great night. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.